felt it myself as a journalist or someone who's been on Twitter for a decade or so. Like, sometimes you feel like you're in tune with the algorithm. You know exactly what to do and how to tune your content so that it gets popular and gets a lot of likes. And then at other times, it's just not hitting. Like, the feed is suddenly prioritizing other things or other formats. So I think there's this seduction of algorithmic platforms where they can really deliver your content to a huge audience and suddenly get you a big fan base, like as a TikTok creator or a proto-influencer. And then all of a sudden, just as you're gaining that audience and starting to maybe become addicted to the attention, then the algorithm kind of goes away. Your solution to the equation stops working quite as well as you thought it was. Tastes fluctuate, and maybe your content can stay the same and people just are not as interested in it anymore. But also the algorithm of the feed changes, and the forms of content that digital platforms emphasize change over time. So you kind of do have to play this constant catch-up game of figuring out what the feed likes this day or this week and what it might prioritize in the future.
Well, you write quite a bit about your own experience, how early in your career you learned to judge your success on the internet almost entirely in terms of numbers. So many of us do this. How many thumbs up on Facebook or how many likes on Twitter? How does this impact how you see yourself as a writer, how you measure what is good?
Oh man, I mean, it's tough to separate your success from attention online, I think. I mean, this is just a real fact of existing in the past decade or more. So much of how we consume things is routed through these feeds that if your work is doing badly in the feeds, then you kind of feel bad about it. Like, as a journalist, particularly in the early 2010s, I would feel bad that my brand new article didn't get as many likes as the last one, or my pithy observation on Twitter didn't have enough response, and that would make me feel embarrassed or that I had done the wrong thing. So it kind of puts you in this trap of self-consciousness, I think, where it's like you're always being graded on everything you put out into public.
And in a way, you are, because I'm thinking about how hard it is for maybe filmmakers and writers and visual artists, creators of all kinds to find footing in filter world. Book publishers, for instance, want to know how many platforms you're on, how many followers you have as part of your proposal for a book deal. How much of that assessment actually changes the kinds of books and movies and music that we have access to?
Oh, I think it really does change it. I mean, every publisher will ask a new author, what is your platform? Like, how big of a platform do you have? Which is almost a euphemism for how many followers do you have online, whether that's Twitter or Instagram or an email newsletter. They want to know that you already have an audience going into this process, that you have a built-in fan base for what you're doing. And culture doesn't always work that way. I don't think every idea should have to be so iterative that you need fans already for something to succeed, that you have to kind of engage audiences at every point in the process of something to have it be successful. So for a musician, you know, maybe you'll get a big record deal only if you go viral on TikTok. Or if you have a hit YouTube series, maybe you'll get more gigs as an actor. There's this kind of gatekeeping effect here too, I think, where in order to get more success on algorithmic platforms, you have to start with seeding some kind of success on there already.
Have television shows or movies use algorithms help green light or shape content?
I think so. I mean, I think you can see how TV shows and movies have adapted to algorithmic feeds by the kind of like one-liner, gift-ready scenes that we see in so many TV shows and movies now. You can kind of see how a moment in a film is made to be shared on Twitter, or how a certain reaction in a reality TV show, for example, is made to become a meme. And I think a lot of production choices have been influenced by that need for your piece of content to drive more pieces of content.
How would you say journalism has been impacted and shaped by these algorithmic forces?
Well, Algorithmic feeds, I think, took on the responsibility that a lot of news publications once had. Decades past, we would see the news stories that we consumed on a daily basis from the New York Times front page on the print paper, or then the New York Times homepage on the internet. Now, instead of the publication choosing which stories are most important, which things you should see right away, the Twitter or X algorithmic feed is sorting out what kinds of stories you're consuming and what narratives are being built up. Or, TikTok, we now have kind of TikTok talking heads and explainers rather than news anchors on cable TV. So the kind of responsibility for choosing what's important, I think, has been ported over to algorithmic recommendations rather than human editors or producers.
This feels like we're now venturing into what is dangerous territory because we've been talking for many years about misinformation. You write about how algorithms can speed up ideological radicalism because it feeds users more extreme content in a single category. How would regulation, federal regulation of these tech companies, impact maybe the power that the algorithm has?
I mean, I think part of the problem with Filter World is that it feels inescapable. Like, we've been talking about so many negative qualities of this environment. I think there are ways out of it and ways that we can, like, break down the grip of Filter World.